have permissions now. Oh, thank you. I say one more minute. Does anyone else have any things they want to share? Cool movies, cool TV shows, cool things they worked on this weekend or past weekend?
We have Final Girl going out this weekend.
Oh, that's stressful. Yes. I can talk about that too. My EIV show, Final Girl, is this weekend. I've been producing it remotely, but my 3 other producers have been working really hard at Emerson. So yeah, hopefully everything goes well this weekend. I'm excited.
I'll be there to help them. It's okay,
Yeah,
Julie. I'll be your eyes and hands.
You'll pick up all the crafting. It'll be great. All right, so I guess I'm gonna start off the meeting. Thanks everyone for coming again. We're really excited to have you. Let me share screen. All right, so this is meeting 4, right? Yeah, 4 of Women in Motion. We're going to be talking about producing today. I'm really excited about this. I do producing and directing kind of equally at the moment, and so I have a lot of stuff to talk about. Yeah, so if everyone can do the QR code for attendance, then we can get started. Also, before we actually get into the presentation, I have 2 kind of announcements to make, just because they're time sensitive or whatever. First, we have 2 projects that are looking for crew. One is called Miss Ingenious, or Miss I for short. Sarah is heading that one. Sarah, are you here? You want to talk about it for a bit, or?
Hi. Yes.
Yeah.
I know it's weird when you're like share your screen and there's only like one box.
Yeah.
But yes. Currently, I'm looking for a editor, cinematographer, and a sound recorder / designer. I feel like that's enough people for right now. I don't know. But basically, my project is called Miss Ingenious, or Miss I for short, like Julia said. And my goal right now is to just aim for a docuseries pilot in which follows women in the arts and women in film specifically, and just captures the experience of being a woman in this field, and the experience and influence of being a woman in the arts. And yeah, that's really what I'm trying to document. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and we're really excited to help you with this project. Anyone who's like interested in possibly working on this project, email Sarah. The email's there. Yeah, she was the first person to pitch to us, and we love her for that. So yeah, go check her out. And then the second one is this film. It's a BA capstone called Tiana by Maria. I am unsure. Is Maria here? I can't see. I don't believe so. But she's really cool. She's a last semester senior, and so she's looking to hire a full female crew. So like 100% female, which is a pretty rare thing for Emerson sets. So meaning that it'll be a really unique experience. Stop, dog. Sorry. Stop whining. It'll be a really unique experience, and hopefully something that's going to be really valuable. Working on BAs and BFAs are probably like the most professional kinds of sets that we get on, besides master's thesis films. So definitely scan the QR code for her, or email her. Crew calls are this weekend and today, I think. Yeah. Okay, now we can actually get into the meeting part of this. So, Woman of the Week is Christine Vachon. She's really, really cool. Powerhouse producer, basically. She's produced so many things. Let's see. Basically, 3 projects every year since 1985, which, thinking about how much effort it takes to produce even like a short thing, like that's really impressive. So her longtime directing collaborator is Todd Haynes. They've both been nominated for Emmys, and he's nominated for a ton of awards, but continues to work with her a lot. She's done Superstar, like one of her first features was that. and it's an avant-garde film where she talks about Karen Carpenter as like the pop star that she is through Barbies. It's an interesting watch. I watched in my productions course. I don't know if I'd recommend it, but it's interesting. And then all those other movies as well she's done and received awards for and recognition for. I think also an interesting point about her is that she pioneered with Todd Haynes the queer cinema movement in film in the early 1990s. She broke a lot of boundaries so that movies now, like, I don't know, Love, Simon can come out, because now that's not seen as so like boundary breaking, because she broke them a while ago, if that makes sense. Yeah, so she's really cool. I'd encourage you to check her out, and I would encourage you to keep an eye out for possible events in the future revolving around her. I can't say more than that, but it's gonna be fun. Yeah, so then moving on. Cassie, you want to go ahead and take this?
As soon as the slides update, yes, I will. Sorry, everyone. My computer is running based in 1987. So, okay. What is a producer? So, a film producer is someone that is essentially the runner of everything. They initiate, coordinate, supervise, and manage the creation and production of a product all the way from its conception until it's distributed. So a producer could be independent, they could be self-employed, or they can be employed by a production company or a studio. If you look on the right side of the screen, these are just some of the tasks that producers are in charge of doing. That's something that they do in the day-to-day life. They find stories, either have people pitch to them, or they'll go and search for it. They develop scripts with their writers. They do scheduling, money, budgeting, hiring the cast and crew, and coordinating all the stages of production.
Yeah, and I like to think a lot of the time that the producer and director are like the powerhouse team of a film. The director is usually the idea person and the one who's like, what if we did this? And then the producer is the one who's like, here's how we can do that feasibly and with everything that we have right now. So together they're a really strong and team, I find. And communication between those two is super important. Then speaking about communication, communication and organization are like the two main skills you have to have as a producer. If you're not organized, the film set in its entirety is not going to be organized either, and a lot of things are going to fall through the cracks. If you don't communicate, then even if you are super organized, people aren't going to know what you have to do and what they have to do. And so you're responsible as a producer to make sure that everyone's up to date and everyone knows what they're doing. I specifically love spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are so nice for a producer. You need, if you really want to undertake producing as a serious thing, you need to understand how to use them and how to use them efficiently. You need to be able to make a crew call or a budget or a schedule in an instant. You can't be looking up how to do it on the fly, or else you might fall behind during production. It's also a great way to keep organized and a great way to keep track of things visually. I'm definitely a visual person, so when I see something so clearly out on a spreadsheet, it's a lot easier than just a bullet point list on a blank sheet of paper. Another important skill to have as a producer, emails and phone calls. I hate them. I hate making emails and I hate sending phone calls. It's really nerve-wracking sometimes, especially if they're cold emails or cold phone calls where you don't know the person at all and you're literally asking them straight up. So if you're looking for locations, you have to make cold phone calls to all the locations you're looking for. Say you're trying to find a restaurant, you would call up each restaurant and be like, hi, can you give me a place to shoot? And they'll say either yes or no. And the worst they can say is no. That's usually the best thing to keep in mind, is if there is no harm in asking usually. And the more you ask, the more likely it is that someone will say yes eventually. So just learn the correct ways to do emails and phone calls would be good. Cassie, if you want to take it forward again.
My computer a second to catch up. I apologize to everybody for the little like delay in between slides. Okay, here we go. So these are the types of producers at Emerson specifically. A lot of these roles, because Emerson, if you've worked on any EIV or Emerson Channel show or anything, they split up their producers typically into these three groups: logistics, creative, and technical. In the industry, like there's usually not any like clearly defined role. The producers will mix their responsibilities around, but for this like level of producing like student sets and everything, it's good to like get experience in each one. So logistics, they are mainly pre-production oriented, so they are in charge of the permits and the scheduling and hiring the crew and handling crafty, which is the food services on set. Creative VPs are in charge of concept development, and they will work really closely with the director or the writer. They also are involved in hiring, but they hire the talent mostly. And then the technical EPs do all of the technical stuff. So they rent the equipment, they coordinate with all of the heads of the departments, so DP for camera team and gaffer for G&E. And they are heavily involved in post-production to make sure that the special effects and all of the edits are doing good. So they're also like the go-to person on set for safety. And if there's any problems on set, like they're the person that handles it.
And again, this is how Emerson does it. And I find that like the way this works is a lot of like, here's your responsibility. Other producers can hop on that, but if something doesn't get done, then that is that producer's responsibility. It's important to have that kind of hierarchy and that chain of command, especially on a crew set. So if you know something like is going wrong, you know exactly who to go to fix that problem. Even if other producers help that producer, it's just a chain of responsibility. Currently, I'm the technical producer on Final Girl, so I've been working with like EIV, equipment and the EDC equipment and stuff. It's a lot of these, like as a technical producer specifically, I find it like very intimidating sometimes because I find that like I do not know enough about. I never feel like I know enough about equipment to properly like do the job. A lot of this, when you're learning how to be a producer, is doing the research beforehand, and doing the necessary research to do your job well. You don't have to know everything about the job in order to accept it, as long as you're willing to put in the work in order to get the job done well. Yeah. So now on to development. Basically, we're just going to go through each stage of filmmaking for you guys so that you can understand what the producer's role is in each of those stages. We figured that's a good way to organize exactly what the responsibilities are each time. And even though we're not going to split it up now in between like logistical, creative, and technical, I bet you can infer probably which department each goes into. So development during this stage of filmmaking is from the start of an idea, like the moment someone has an idea about something, to the beginning of actual pre-production. Usually pre-production starts when you have the money and the ability to actually start it, so you have enough of the key crew ready and assembled that you can begin pre-production. So during the stage, producers are mainly responsible for budgets, finalizing the script with the writer, and pitching. We've talked about pitching before, but we'll go over it again briefly now. The first thing we'll talk about is just budgeting. Producers largely talk about money, and because money is what the film set like lives off of. If you don't have money, you can't get a location, or you can't hire a specific cast member or crew member. You can't pay your crew. If you don't have money, a lot of the time it's really hard to bring a film up to the level that many directors want it to be. So being able to budget what you have or creating an ideal budget is important to then understand like the level of film that you can make. So what I found is really important to be able to do when creating a possible budget, not even when you don't have money at the moment, just creating an idea and having an expectation of what kind of money you want to have is really helpful for then going out and asking for money. So the three kinds of budgets that I usually try and make is, the first is like a bare bones budget. Stop them. You just sorry. So bare bones is like exactly sorry, Apollo keeps distracting me. I apologize again. So bare bones is smallest amount of money possible. What is like, if you can make your budget on $100 just by that, that's just the location payment and that's it. That's what the bare bones budget like accounts for. Usually it's like a micro budget. Usually you don't pay your cast or crew, they're volunteers in a general. And usually the locations are somewhat free. This is what happens. The bare bones is like if you stretch your penny at the longest possible amount, like, oh, I lost my train of thought. Wow. But bare bones is usually what student films are based off of. Student films in general, when compared to other professional films, have a tiny, tiny, tiny budget. When you're talking in an industry that works in millions of dollars, a couple thousand isn't going to make a huge difference. So thinking of it in terms of the industry, student films are considered bare bones, but thinking of it in terms of Emerson, bare bones would be less than $300 probably. So then the second kind of budget will be a moderate budget. Basically, it's like the budget that would take care of all your necessary expenses and have a little bit of wiggle room above just to like expense for some kind of other product or thing that you want. That's not exactly entirely necessary for it to happen, but you would prefer to have in order for it to happen. So like if you wanted some extra special effects makeup, or if you wanted to hire a stunt person, if you wanted to pay your crew a little bit extra more because then you want to have a longer day or something like that. That's usually the kind of budget, the medium level budget that you would then account for. Then we have the highball budget, which is absolutely just go crazy. The budget of, if I could have the ideal amount of money to make this project, what would it be? This is still like, you still have to be within moderation and you have to remember what is realistic in this. If you were in the professional world, highball would be like, I want $3 million. That would be a highball for a short film or something like that. But in the student world, a highball would likely still be like in the thousands, but probably not more than 10,000, at least at Emerson, unless you had like specific ways to get that much money. Again, this is like within moderation, but still go crazy, if that makes sense. If like you have to find that balance there. But then with these three budgets, you can then create like a good way to approach people and ask for money and say, here's the lowest I need, here's the highest I need, can you give me something in between that, or something that I can then build to my moderate budget. It's really important to stay realistic, but also like have a good solid plan for what you want to do with your money. So now Cassie's going to talk about actually getting the money that you need for your film.
Yes. So the slides, again, haven't updated, but while I'm waiting for it to. This is Christine Vachon's book that I am actually reading for my intro to producing class here at Emerson. It is called Shooting to Kill. I will like mention this at the end, or like I'll put it in the chat or something if you're interested in getting it. But one thing that she says, and every producer says, is like the one thing that they cannot teach you how to do is where to get money to finance your project, because every project is so drastically different, and it really just depends on luck and who you know. So some of the ways that Vachon talks about, and I've learned just from like experience and like producing class and stuff, fundraising is one of the best ways to get money for your films. At Emerson, you can go through Blaze or Chipotle and do fundraisers that way, where they give you a minimum amount that you have to raise, and then if you raise that amount, they will give you like 30% of the proceeds or whatever. So that's like a really good way to make money, and I'm sure you've all seen like the posters for like either the fraternities or an END set for doing Blaze fundraiser. Private investors, you can do a GoFundMe and people can donate like anonymously, family, etc. Some states will do tax incentives, not necessarily for student films, but in the industry, if you are filming a film in Boston, if you include something that makes the state or the government look good, they'll give you a certain amount of tax incentive for that. So that's another way. But I'm just gonna go into some more of like the student sets because we're all students here. So grants are probably the best way to do this. Besides fundraising, obviously, and like personal investors, like you can apply for grants online pretty much anywhere. If your film has a female lead, you can get a bunch of grants through that. If it's LGBTQ centered, you can get grants for that. So that's also a really good thing to look into. Not necessarily for like EIV or MCHAM, but if you're doing like an independent project that like is your passion project that you want to make like while you're at Emerson, grants are a great way to go. And then the rest of it is all like industry stuff, which I can talk more about if you want, but I feel like it's
Yeah, you can just briefly go over what people do in the industry, I think.
yeah, okay. So product placement obviously is ads. If Christine Vachon is doing a partnership with Doritos, her main character in one of the scenes will be eating Doritos out of the bag with the logo facing the camera. Simple, done. Deferments are usually found in independent productions when you're first getting started. You would talk to your cast and crew and see who would be down for deferring their pay until after you get like revenue from your project. So if the project does well, they get paid, and if the project doesn't, they don't. But with deferments, like you don't get any money until your casting crew is paid, even after the project is like over. Like they get first priority if they defer their payment. Debt funding is similar to student loans, where producers or production companies, because there's like a whole thing within the industry where like you can't really apply for stuff unless you create a specific company for that film, but that's another conversation. But you would go to a bank and be like, I'm making a film, can I borrow like $2,000? And there's like a whole process for that, and you do have to pay it back with interest, just like with any other loan. And sometimes distributors or even some production companies like A24, this is how they got started, they will pay you, they will invest money into your film if they think that they can make money off of it, and if you give them distribution rights. So these are all like really like, because Christine is like a sole independent producer. She does not work with studios. So these are some things that she's talked about that she's done to raise finances for her films.
Yeah, those are all great ways. Thank you so much, Cassie. A lot of these like are things that you will have to learn in the industry, and mostly the first two are the ways that student films will run and try and get money. I find that crowdfunding is probably the best way at the moment to get money for any student productions. Then next we're going to talk about is just another kind of brief overview of pitches and things that Christine like has talked about in her book. Just another like brief overview of that.
Yes. So I'm not going to go into every single one of these because these are just like all the points that she has. But this is something to keep out, like keep an eye for when you're pitching to, let's say, Women in Motion, because we've only got one pitch so far. Today's the last day to submit your pitches if you want to get funding for your project. So know who you're pitching to. If you are like submitting a pitch packet like through the mail or email now, because you know technology, don't start it off with like, Dear Mr. Vachon, if she's a female. Like make sure you know who you're pitching to, what type of content they usually produce, all that stuff. Be concise. Do not give away the entire plot of your movie and every detail and every little twist and turn. They don't have time for that. Synopses are also a very good way to go, because like once you get into like the industry, people are going through so many pitches a day that like if you don't grab their attention with like the 1 to 2 sentence pitch, they're not going to look into your script at all. Spell check. This is something that she like specifically highlights, because apparently it seems obvious, but I guess when people are stressed or just trying to get like money and they're just applying to multiple producers, they don't take the time to spell check or even fact check their scripts, and that's a big turnoff. So make sure you always spell check. And then just like don't gush. Like it's good to be passionate about your project, but don't become to the point where it's like this will get made. It's just a matter of whether or not you're a part of it. Like that's another big turnoff. So just be concise, know who you're pitching to, and spell check. Those are the three big things.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm laughing at the don't get too cocky because I've actually had the experience where I've walked into a room and been like, I'm making this, give me money or else this will happen. And then got money for it. So I think, yeah, it's a good idea to not be too cocky and be able to make sure that like you can back up what you're saying. But especially for women in this industry, it's good to be sure of yourself and be sure that like what you're making is going to be like you're going to make it, and the people that you're asking money for is not the end all be all of this film.
It's good to be confident, just don't get too cocky about
yeah. Okay, so that's distribution, or not distribution, that's development. Now, just talking about pre-production and what producers do during this time. I can narrow down to one word, which is paperwork. So much paperwork. Oh my God. But it's really, really important to be able to have like all your papers in order and all the things that you need to do, like ready to go before you start production. This is when you plan out everything and you're leading everything up to the day you start filmmaking. So first thing to talk about, I think, is scheduling. It's really, really important to keep everyone on time and on track. Producers need to set like feasible deadlines for the crew to follow and maintain the momentum of the production. A large amount of time, the one who's pushing the project forward is the producer, while the director is working with everyone. So while a director would want to spend years on their project before they even start, a producer's like, here's the timeline, here's what we have to do in this amount of time. And so making sure that everyone's like on the same tracks. So, and also like with the schedule, like nothing will ever go as you plan it to be. Never 100%. You have to be able and willing to change it as things come up. So, and then once those things change, you need to be able to communicate to your crew like effectively and very quickly. So this image up here is a sample BFA schedule for like if someone had gotten accepted in the fall of this semester and Corona didn't happen, but it's called a Gantt chart, and I find that this is like my favorite way of scheduling, but that's because I am a visual learner. There are hundreds of other ways to schedule that are still just as effective. I just figured I could show you this one because I know basically how well it works. Can you guys see my cursor when I move it on the screen? Yeah, okay. So the way this works is literally like this, the x-axis is like the timeline, like if you can see like summer, fall, like, and then by week. If you do it each day, it's going to be way too detailed and it's just not worth it. So being able to keep a broad but still like focused schedule is really important. And then on this y-axis, it's each aspect of a film production in order. So you start with development, go to pre-production, go to production, go to post-production, and then at the very end is when it's complete. And then when you're going through this Gantt chart, you highlight the cells that you want this to be like when you want the crew to be working on this specific aspect of it. So you start with the script, and up until the 4th week of the fall, you'd be working on the script until the very end of that 4th week when the script would then be finalized. That then continues in each of these, where each of these highlighted sections are when you'd be working on this specific aspect of production. Sometimes it's hard to get the hang of it and hard to like keep this as like your schedule because it's sometimes looks a little disorganized. Do you guys have any questions about the specific kind of schedule, or do you guys have any other schedules that like work for you? Any questions, comments, or stuff about this? Because I know this is a little bit complicated.
I also just want to point out that once again, this is made on a spreadsheet. So that just goes back to like spreadsheets are going to take up your entire life as a producer.
Yeah. I made this one on Google Docs. You can also use Excel. Not Google Docs, Google Sheets, sorry. You can also use Excel, and I think there are also other like scheduling programs out there that are helpful. I just find that when I make it myself, it's a lot easier to then change it myself as well. Yeah. All right. So if we don't have any questions about scheduling, talk about permits. This is permits and forms, I guess. This is the paperwork side of things. This is the stuff that's really, really important. And if some people might call it like busy work, just because they think it's like behind the desk and just signing forms. And even though it is behind a desk and signing forms, it is probably the most important thing that you can do on a set, so you don't get sued, so you don't lose money, so you can actually like use the things that you want to use, and like in general like have a successful film production. So at Emerson, there are some of the forms that you need to know about are the A1, A2, and A3 forms. They're basically like certificates of insurance and kind of safety forms at the same time. A1 is certificates for location of like if you're on Emerson. A2 is public property, and A3 is private property. Each one of these can be found on the Emerson website, and you have to get them signed by a lot of different people. And it's usually a long process, so starting these early is a really, really good idea. Because if you at Emerson, if you have an Emerson production and you don't fill out these forms, you won't be able to film on set. At the moment, Emerson doesn't provide A1 forms because you can't film on Emerson locations anymore because of COVID.
That's not, wait, Julie, that's not 100% true. They are still doing A1 forms. You can go some places at Emerson.
You just cannot film in the residence buildings, and off-campus students cannot come in.
Thank you. I did misspeak. Thank you for that. Okay, yes, so you can apparently do A1 forms. Just it's a lot more limited than last time. Usually if you were filming in like a residence hall, you still need to do A1 forms as well. And then you also have the safety plans, safety forms that need to be approved by Lending Manzo and the ECPD. It's a long process again, start them early. If you don't have safety plans, then Emerson will not approve your shoot. And then the new stuff that you have to do is COVID captain training, just for safety, again, because safety is a huge thing for any producer.
Just going back to like the safety forms really quick, that you have to fill out and get every set approved by Lenny, no matter how big or small. So if you're doing a set through One Motion, Lenny has to know about it. Lenny has to approve the entire safety plan. Someone on that set has to be a COVID captain. Like he takes his job very seriously, and he can be scary at times, but like you cannot do anything in the VMA department if Lenny doesn't know about it. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Make sure Lenny is your friend and he will be nice to you as well, but like don't try and go behind his back. That's a surefire way to get into a huge amount of trouble. If you don't take safety seriously on an Emerson set, people will know about it, people will talk, and it's very easy to get I guess blacklisted is kind of the word for it, of like if someone doesn't feel safe on your set, likely people won't try and come to your set anymore if you do another project in the future.
Yeah. And if like Emerson's a small community, like word gets around pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just stay safe, stay within regulations at the moment. Especially with Corona happening, safety is still super huge. Yeah, so I think that's all I got to say about that for the moment. But then in the industry, just in general, and more things that you have to keep in mind for like permits and safety that you have to that you have to fill out. Insurance waivers for equipment and location, talent release forms. Like if you're interviewing someone on the street, just a random person or something like that, they have to sign a form that says, yes, you're allowed to use my image in your film, basically. A lot of the time, if someone doesn't do that, people will get angry because they didn't realize that they were being filmed, is the argument, which is strange, but it's still important for legal reasons. You don't want to get sued, especially as a student. There's also like city and state permits for if you're filming in a public location, you have to notify the city. Weapons permits, you have to notify the police if you're shooting with a fake gun or fake swords or fake weapons of any kind, because people bystanders will be like, oh my gosh, I just saw a dude hitting another dude with a mace. Like, and so if the cops have been alerted already that you are in production with weapons, they will then like be able to explain what is happening to that concerned civilian and then not send police out to you. Same thing also with fire department as well. If you ever have like open flames or something like that, sometimes you'll need to have a fireman on set with you for safety. There's also vehicle permits, contracts for cast and crew if you're paying them, which is super important because a lot of people want to get paid because this is their livelihood. And then just inventory of like everything that you've brought to set so that you don't ever lose anything while you're loading in or dropping off. So yeah, permits, they're a lot of work and a lot of like bureaucracy that you have to go through, but in the end, it does save you money to like do all the permits that you need to do in order to make sure that everything you're doing is legal. Then just final thing to talk about with pre-production is you're gonna have a lot of meetings with a lot of people. Directors will usually be doing the creative side of things, but producers should be sitting in talking about like the feasibility of something happening, the logistics of it, making sure that everything's still within budget, making sure that everything's going on schedule. It's just, again, like communication is so important throughout this entire process. And if you're not communicating, if you're not saying, hey, let's meet this week and talk about this aspect of the film, like see what's happening, then nothing's going to happen. As a producer, you have to be kind of the one in charge of making sure that things get done. And just in general, like you have to facilitate creative and collaborative communication. And working with the director on this and making sure that you're always following along with the production. Like you can't really take a day off with this. It's constant work, but it's really worth it, I think. Okay, so that's pre-production. Now just going into production and what you do on set. Largely, on-set producers act as a supervisor, settling disputes, making quick decisions, and making it easier for the director to do their job as a creative person. Basically, just making sure the set goes as smoothly as possible. Oh, that's a lot of words. Oh, I'm getting out of breath. I'm so sorry. Again, constant communication with the director on set, making sure that nothing, because the directors have the habit of being like, oh, on set, I want to change this up immediately and do this different thing instead. And a lot of the time producers have to shut that down and say, that goes over budget, that goes over schedule, we can't do that, and kind of shutting them down for that way. A lot of the time, this could cause tension, but if you communicated with your director throughout pre-production and communicated well on set, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. And on set, just an important note to make is the producer has the final word for almost everything on set except for the creative stuff, creative filmmaking decisions, which is the director's job. So a producer cannot say, I want this shot to be here looking at this actor with this actor saying this. Like that's not their job. The producer can say, we can't do that camera move because that requires equipment we don't have, or something like that. But most of the time, producers are not given creative control, especially not on Emerson sets. Sorry, I'm like out of breath. Okay, so filmmaking is also a stressful process. Producers have to settle disputes, basically, make sure that nothing on set will actually take away from the filmmaking process. If there is some kind of problem, if there's an argument on set, the producer is the one who steps in as the middleman, makes sure it's settled, and then just solves the problem in some way. The producer also works with the assistant director for scheduling and making sure that like the director stays in line almost. Assistant director is somewhat a mix between the directing team and the producing team, I would imagine. Assistant director usually works a lot more with the producer to then work with the director. That makes sense. And in the industry, the assistant director sometimes answers directly to the producer instead of the director, which is an interesting phenomenon, I think. Sorry, this is in the way. I can't see my last line. Okay, and then they just coordinate crafty, transportation, and equipment in general on set, making sure that everything goes smoothly again. They also have the team to back them up, which is the assistant producers and production assistants, just to make sure that like they don't have to do it all on their own and they can delegate tasks to other people on set because it's very chaotic and very hectic, and sometimes like one person can't do it all on their own. Oh, that was so much words. I'm so sorry. Next, post-production. Producers are really just making sure that everything meets their assigned deadlines and every aspect of the film is compiled into the final edit and can be compiled into the final edit. So if they missed a shot or missed some important scenes during production, they can schedule pickup days and basically have another production just again going just to make sure that they can get everything. And producers then will meet with the editors, sound designers, and directors, making sure that everything's still going further and getting along with this process. They then will license music, work with the composer to like make sure that the music is getting into the edit as well. And then they also have to compile the film credits. So just making sure that everyone who's ever touched the film, touched the production in any way, is credited in the final scene, in the final credit roll or whatever. Because if they don't, people will get mad. A lot of people like really enjoy seeing their names up at the end of a film. And if you miss them, that's a really bad snub in general to your crew and cast. So making sure that you compile your film credits correctly is really important. Then just talking about distribution. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to say that marketing is the most important thing of this. Making sure that like people know your film is there and know that your film is like out there somewhere is really important. It can also then catch the attention of larger distribution companies and people who might be able to get it into larger theaters or to larger audiences. You can submit it to film festivals, work with a distribution company to get into a theater, sell it to a streaming service, or just post it online. There's a bunch of different ways distribution can work. Emerson kind of brushes over it a lot of the time, but I would suggest taking the business of film class if you are looking to understand more about like exactly how films get sold and exactly how people see them from production into distribution. Whew. Okay. What time is it at the moment? Okay, we got time. So right now we're going to like try and like break everyone up into small groups just to talk about like hypothetical situations so you can brainstorm what exactly you would do as a producer in this situation. The first is a crew member. So just 3 different situations for you guys to think about and talk about in your small groups. The first is crew member A tells you that crew member B is making them uncomfortable while on set. When approached, crew member B denies any wrongdoing. That's the first one. Second one, the location the director loves is $300 over budget, and they ask you to reduce crafty budget to make up the difference. What do you do? And then next one is, can't see it. The deadline for your film is in a week, and the editor and director are arguing over the final cut of the film. Again, what would you guys do in that situation? So, I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm going to do breakout rooms of, how many people do we have? How many participants?
We have 20.
20? Okay.
And
So
then minus the 4 of us is 16, unless you want to put us in the breakout room.
I'm gonna do this in the breakout rooms. It's gonna be good.
Oh, fun. Okay.
So
5 people each?
5 people each. We can also talk about, put the stuff into the chat if you guys forget which scenario you guys want to talk about. All right. And we'll be back in about 10 minutes, okay? Cool. Open all rooms.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, so for the first question, it was if someone is making someone else uncomfortable, but then you like approach that person and they just say they didn't do anything. Do you guys have any ideas on how you would handle that?
I guess I'll go. I guess I would think that it's important to kind of hear both sides of the story and kind of get where each person is coming from. And if there is like something clearly wrong, then like addressing it. But if not, just kind of, I think just being honest about the situation, being like, look, you're making somebody uncomfortable, and like even though you don't see it this way, because I think that not just like directly addressing it is like how like more problems kind of come up in
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I agree with Sophia. And in addition to that, basically like person B saying, hey, you're making them uncomfortable, so don't do the things that are making person A uncomfortable again, because I think one should always believe the person that says they're being made uncomfortable, especially if it's a more sexist situation. And then basically saying to person B, look, if you repeat this behavior, we're gonna have, and if other people start saying the same thing, we're really gonna have to consider your job here.
Yeah. And definitely I feel like keeping, like, as both of you were saying, like keeping the conversation honest and open, and like making sure that you tell them like, hey, if this is gonna happen again, you're gonna be kicked off, or hey, this is how crew member A is feeling, so like we should respect what's going on there, and like even if you didn't do it, let's just make sure that you kind of clear the air and make sure everything's okay.
Cool.
Okay. Do we want to go on to the next one? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was like the director loves the budget
Location.
or location. Yeah, not budget.
Yeah.
Loves location, and it's $300 over budget.
Yeah.
But he wants to, or the director wants to take it out of Crafty, right? So that's out of the food budget to make up for that. I feel like this is kind of a hard one because I understand like loving a location and like wanting that to be your place, but like you gotta feed your crew also. That's like very important. I'm not sure.
Maybe it depends on, I feel like it really is dependent on how perfect the location is for it. And then as the executive, make an executive decision as a producer, like, okay, it's really worth it for the director to have their vision at this point. But then also like, how big is the craft budget? Like if we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars in a craft budget, 300 isn't that much. But I guess maybe we're talking on the Emerson scale, in which case $300 is a lot.
Yeah, that's very true. And also, like, I was kind of thinking, what if we just don't take it out of the craft budget and maybe fundraise and get the money somewhere else,
That's what I was going to say. Like, is it possible to try and find the money somewhere else? And instead of like compromising your crew, but like trying, because I feel like $300, like, it's a lot of money, but maybe possibly through fundraising and other means, it would be possible to kind of pull that together.
Yeah.
I feel like that would also depend on like how much time you have with the location, and like if it's like dependent on the weather too, like if you need like a colder kind of tone or like a really sunny kind of picture, then
Yeah, that's very true. Also, like maybe negotiating with the people who are renting you the space or whatever to see if you can lower that as well, which I mean, that's a little bit more difficult if that's what they're coming at as their price, but maybe you could say like, hey, maybe $100 less or something.
Schmoozing them, being like, you'll get a feature in the film,
Exactly.
get a walk on roll, because people love that. Like they're like, ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, you'll have your name in the credits, don't worry.
Emily, was there a sign-in sheet for this meeting?
There was an attendance QR code at the beginning. Did you, we can put it back up at the end so you guys
Okay, yeah, I missed that.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Then for the third question, what was the third question? I just had it in my mind. Now I completely forgot.
I took a picture of them. I think it was the deadline for your film is in a week, and the editor and director are arguing over the final cut.
Yeah. That's just an annoying situation.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I've been in a similar situation where like that has happened, and it sucks just because it's like both people do have like a sense of like creative control over like the director, like it is their movie in terms of like having creative control, but also like when you give like something to an editor, you kind of have to trust it, like, and give them like some power in what they're doing and that they know what they're doing. But like I think once again, just being like a fresh set of eyes and hearing like what both people want, and then A, trying to compromise, or like B, if it does get out of hand, just kind of giving like the proper authority to like one or the other.
Yeah. I definitely think like finding a compromise is the best way, and just be like, hey, let's calm down. Like, I know this is a stressful situation. Like, I know this deadline's coming up, but how about we just sit down and have like a more civilized conversation?
Yeah, and also like maybe asking them what each of their non-negotiables are for having in the final cut. Like, okay, director, what do you want as your like top 3 things that you have to have in your final cut? And then saying the same thing to the editor. And then if it was like really even closer to the deadline, like a few days, I'd defer it. I'd be like, the editor now has final say because they're the editor, not the director. And then if there were still issues, I mean, I know that the producer doesn't have creative control, but I think if it's that close to the deadline, you have to like be like, I'm the person who's, you know, helping fund this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And be like, make the final decision. But that would only be like after hearing both sides and negotiating and compromising, you know, trying tons of other tactics first.
Yeah, definitely. Have any of you guys done producing before? No.
Yeah, on a couple smaller short films.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very stressful sometimes,
Yeah,
but it's pretty rewarding when like the film is done and you can like take a breath.
yeah, absolutely.
Have you ever done producing, Emily?
Yeah, I'm actually producing a show for EIV right now, and I'm 100% learning the stress of like little sleep, lots of permits, lots of safety, especially with COVID. We're running into so many issues with like trying to film on school and like having a certain set crew, and they're just like, nope. So it's a little bit stressful, but yeah, I like it. I don't know if producing's like my favorite thing, but I'm excited that I got to do it. So
Cool. I believe everyone has returned. So I hope those conversations were productive. And like you guys talked about stuff like well. I think we're almost done now with the meeting. I think the last thing I'm just going to share is as an event that we have for this next week. Oh, why did it do that? Oh, it's still messed up. That's fine.
Emma, no.
Okay. So then final thing to talk about today, we have an event promotion. Basically, it's an advanced screening of this really cool documentary. It's a Sundance winning documentary called Time. It depicts a Black woman's struggle against America's criminal justice system, quoted as a film as an eye-opening love letter to family injustice in modern America. Honestly, the trailer looks amazing, and Amazon reached out to us and was like, hey, do you guys want an advanced free screening? We're like, yes, of course we want that. So how to get into the screening, RSVP at this link right here. It's a link that is exclusive to Women in Motion. I would highly encourage checking it out. It's on October 6th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and it was directed by Garrett Bradley, who is the first Black woman ever to win the Documentary Directing Award at Sundance. So I would highly encourage going to support her film and just to see what it's all about. I think this is going to be a really, really cool opportunity for you guys. We'll also be posting this on social media and stuff, so you guys can follow and click on the link from there as well.
Julia,
So-
is that link supposed to be HTTPS?
Probably.
I just want to make sure if people are going to like copy that, just make sure
You can also just type it in without the HTTPS.
that
and it
too.
works. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. But yeah, just a cool reading opportunity. We'll try and keep giving you guys these opportunities throughout every week. Yeah, so with that, I believe that is our meeting for this week. Thank you guys so much for coming and participating and listening to us ramble on about things we like.
And if you are interested in the Christina Vachon book, I put it in the
Thank you so
highly recommend the book.
Yeah. Honestly, best way to learn outside of film school is to read all the books that people have published about film. There are so many out there about so many specific things. So highly recommend finding the books that you enjoy about the things you enjoy, and doing your own research for sure. Because like we're giving brief overviews about very, very large subjects. So yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys all for coming, and hopefully see you guys next week or at the screening on the 6th. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.